So welcome to all of you Shiksha 360, and today basically we will discuss the part 2 of chapter number 28, that is working capital finance, clear working capital finance. And in this session basically we will try to discuss the MBPF, maximum bank permissible finance, and guidelines of the Tandon Committee. First of all, we will understand the concept, and later on we will try to discuss one case study on the basis of that, so we are able to answer the questions. So let's start our session. MBPF, basically you can wait sir for some time. Maximum bank permissible finance, maximum bank permissible finance. Clear? How much bank can maximum finance to any organization? Regarding the guidelines of the Tandon Committee, we have to discuss now. Clear? With the help of guidelines of the Tandon Committee. Okay. So first of all, what are the sources for meeting? What are the sources for meeting working capital requirement? Clear? What are the sources for meeting working capital requirement? Clear? So basically how we can fulfill our requirement of the working capital? Clear? What are the different ways for that? First one here, that is own sources. That is basically the borrower has their own personal sources. So the balance sheet of the last accounting year depicts the position of available net working capital. Clear? The balance sheet of the last accounting year basically depicts the position of the available net working capital. Also as the estimate of limits. Clear? Also as the estimate of limits is based on projected balance sheet. Clear? That is projected balance sheet of the upcoming year. At the end of the current accounting year, there are some internal accruals which are also taken into account. That is basically we have to take payment from them. Clear? There are also some internal accruals basically which are also taken into account. So depending upon the desired current ratio, what is, can anyone tell basically what is the formula of the current ratio? Current ratio is equal to current asset upon current liability. Okay, and it is to be greater than 1. Clear? It is to be greater than 1. Clear? It is to be greater than 1, and it depends upon project to project what is the required current ratio, but generally it should be greater than 1. Okay. So depending upon the desired current ratio to be maintained, bank may stipulate additional net working capital. Clear? Bank may stipulate additional net working capital to be brought in if the available net working capital and anticipated internal accruals are not considered enough to maintain the desired current ratio. Clear? So what they can say that basically depending upon the desired current ratio to be maintained. Clear? Sometimes the firm is not able to maintain the desired current ratio. Clear? That is basically their liabilities is continuously going to increase. Clear? Generally basically in most of the cases what they want, that is it is to be like 1.5 ratio 1 or 2 ratio 1. Clear? Generally basically these are to be considered as a good one. Okay. So depending upon the desired current ratio to be maintained, bank may stipulate additional net working capital to be brought in if the available net working capital and anticipated internal accruals are not considered enough to maintain the desired current ratio. Clear? So basically bank, what they will do, basically they will ask the borrower to infuse some more capital. Clear? To infuse some more capital so that they will improve the desired current ratio. Clear? So that they will improve the desired current ratio. Okay. In many of the cases, you will find that there are many CC limits, clear, where current ratio is going down. So you have to check and consult with the borrowers to infuse some capital, though, so that basically their CC limit is going to be little bit secure one. Clear? So that it is to be going good. Okay. So let's discuss some more points. Second one is, first one is the sources for meeting working capital. That is own sources. Second one is to be suppliers credit. Clear? Suppliers credit, that you have to supply your goods to this one and you will receive amount from that. Clear? That is estimate of this depends upon the market practice. Next one is other current liabilities like salaries, payable, advances from customers, etc. Fourth one here is to be bank finance. Clear? Fourth one here is to be bank finance, which is the main topic of our today's discussion, that is bank finance. Clear? So now let's discuss on that bank finance. So basically, what is the meaning of bank finance and how we have to calculate? Clear? Calculation of the bank finance, which we have to discuss now. So logically, the need for working capital finance, clear? Logically, the need for working capital finance from the bank is equal to the, clear, how much basically bank, how much the borrower will require fund. Clear? How much the borrower will require fund. Like basically you are going to purchase a car, just for the understanding purpose, and the price of the car is 13 lakh and you have 6 lakh in your hands. So how much you will require? Basically that is 13 minus 6, that is 7 lakh. Basically you want 7 lakh loan from the bank. Okay. So logically the need for working capital finance from the bank is equal to what? Is equal to the gap between the total working capital and the availability of the funds. Clear? Total working capital, basically how much we have required and what is the available funds. The gap between them, that is to be basically we will require. Clear? So logically the need for working capital finance from the bank is equal to the gap between the total working capital and the availability of funds. Clear? And the availability of funds from all the sources as mentioned above. Of course, excluding bank finance. Clear? Here basically what we have to exclude? Bank finance. Clear? Rest all sources basically we have to take care. First one is the own sources. Second one we have to take the suppliers credit. Third one basically we have to take the other current liabilities. Clear? Third one basically we have to take the other current liabilities. So the enterprise or the bank may not have, clear, the enterprise or the bank basically may not have much control basically on what things? On the suppliers credit or the other current liabilities. Clear? As these are driven by the market conditions or the business needs. Clear? You will know that basically the suppliers credit and on the other current liabilities, basically the borrower has not that much control. Clear? On that basically they have control because this is basically in the hands of the borrower. Clear? Basically this is basically in the hands of the borrower. As per the requirement, they can infuse a capital. Okay, but suppliers credit and other current liabilities basically are not in the hands of the borrower. Okay, so the enterprise or the bank may not have much control basically on the suppliers credit, basically what they will get, or other current liabilities, as these are driven by the market condition or the business needs. So, but banks can prescribe the amount to be brought in by the enterprise through its own long-term sources, that is the net working capital. Clear? Either basically in the term of fixed deposit or basically taking funds from their friends. Clear? From anywhere. Clear? Basically it is in the control of the borrower or the enterprise. So this was what we have discussed till now. Basically this was the discussion of this was at the core of the recommendations of the erstwhile Tandon Committee. Clear? These are the recommendation of the basically guidelines of the Tandon Committee, which dominated the psyche of the bankers for a long time. Clear? Basically for a long time, basically bank will use this guidelines. So banks are now free to formulate their own policies. Clear? Basically presently, banks are now free to basically formulate their own policies in this regard, and the method of lending mentioned there still find place in the calculations followed by the banks. Clear? Even banks are now formulating their own guidelines. Even after that, clear, presently these guidelines are to be used. Clear? Presently these guidelines are to be followed many times while calculating the working capital limit. Clear? While calculating the working capital limit, these guidelines are to be used many times. So what are the different guidelines? Now let's discuss. So there are basically 3 methods of lending as per the Tandon Committee. Clear? As per the Tandon Committee, there are basically 3 methods of lending. First method of lending, you have to remember that basically what is the condition in the first method of lending, in the second method of lending, and in the third method of lending. Clear? They will directly ask in the examination. Clear? First method of lending, second method of lending, and third method of lending. Clear? We will discuss one by one in detail. So let's go through the first one, that is first method of lending. Clear? That is first method of lending. What they say that basically under this one, under this, the enterprise was required to bring in at least 25% of the working capital gap. Clear? How much? Bring in basically that is margin. Bring in that is basically margin. Clear? This how much they have to bring in, that is margin. Clear? So under this, the enterprise was required. Clear? Under this basically the enterprise was required to bring in at least 25% of the working capital gap. Clear? At least 25% of the working capital gap. What is the meaning of that is working capital gap? That what is the meaning of that? Total current assets minus total current liabilities excluding bank finance. Clear? Total current assets minus total current liabilities excluding bank finance. Clear? So what is the meaning of that? Working capital gap, that basically we can say that WCP. WCP is equal to current asset, that, or we can say that total current assets minus total current liabilities other than, or we can say that excluding bank finance or bank borrowing. Okay, working capital limit. And one more thing basically we have to understand, which we will discuss in the form of the case study also. There is one more term, that is other current liability. What is other current liability? Other current liability, it is nothing any new term. Other current liability is simply when we will exclude the bank finance from the total current liability. Clear? Basically bank finance basically from the total current liability, that is basically comes under the other current liability. That is current liability minus bank borrowings or bank finance. Bank borrowings or bank finance. Clear? That is basically the amount you have to borrow from the bank. So generally basically we can say that bank borrowing or bank finance. Clear? That is other current liability. Clear? Other current liability. Clear? So here basically we are mentioning that excluding the bank finance or the bank borrowing. So generally working capital limit is considered to be CA minus other current liability, OCL. CA minus OCL. Clear? Working capital gap, sorry, working capital gap. Working capital gap, that is current assets minus other current liabilities. Clear? Current assets minus other current liabilities. And here margin is of what? That is 25% of this one. Clear? 25% of this one, that is margin is basically 25% of working capital gap. Or we can say that 25% of what? CA minus OCL. Or in other words, this is the margin. Sometimes basically in the question they will ask the margin, or otherwise they can say that basically how much bank will finance. How much bank will finance? Bank will finance, that is 75% of that. 75% of current asset minus other current liability, or we can say that's 0.75 CA minus OCL. So please tell fast. Up to this much point, it is clear to all of you regarding the first method of lending, that is to bring in at least 25% of the working capital gap. Clear? Of the working capital gap. This one is the important point. Working capital gap. How we can calculate? Working capital gap is equal to current assets minus other current liabilities. Clear? Current assets minus other current liabilities. So can we discuss one question on the basis of that, or we will directly move forward towards the case study? Let's discuss one simple question. Like we can say that here I will say like current asset. I will discuss here. Like current asset, basically we can say that 600 crore. Clear? Current asset is 600 crore. Current liability is 200 crore. And bank borrowings here is to be 100 crore. So what is the maximum bank permissible finance as per the first method? As per the first method. So how we can calculate maximum bank permissible finance? That is, first of all, we have to calculate working capital gap. That is current assets minus other current liabilities. That is current assets minus other current liabilities. So first of all, we have to calculate other current liability, that is current liabilities minus bank borrowings. Current liabilities here is to be 200 minus bank borrowings is to be 100. So this one is 100. So working capital gap is to be current asset minus 100. That is to be 500 crore. And how much bank will finance? Clear? How much bank will finance? Basically, bank will finance 75% of that. Clear? Margin is 25%. Margin is 25%. And how much bank will finance? That is 75%. Just calculate 75% of 100. So this comes out to be 375 crore. So how much bank will finance here? 375 crore. So how much bank will finance here? That is 375 crore. So please tell fast if you have any doubt, any query regarding this point. Please respond fast. This point is clear to all of you or not? Regarding the first method of lending, please respond fast. This point is clear to all of you or not? Okay, fine. Now I will put one question in front of you and I will expect all of you will give the correct answer. Please ask, even if you have any doubt, any query regarding this one. Here, what we have discussed, basically, they have given the current asset, current liability, and bank borrowing. And they are asking basically what is the maximum bank permissible finance as per the first method regarding the Tandon Committee. So that is basically under that margin is basically 25% of the working capital gap, clear, of the working capital gap, which we have to calculate here. Clear, that is current assets minus other current liabilities. Clear, other current liabilities, basically we will calculate here current liabilities minus bank borrowings. Current asset we have written here, other current liabilities basically we have written here, that is 500 crore. Of that, basically 75% we can lend, 75% we can lend. So 75% of 500, that is 375 crore. Okay. And margin here, if they are asking margin is 125 crore. Okay. And in the case study also, basically they will ask these types of question. Just they will ask 3 to 4 questions at one place. We will consider that it is very typical, but this is not that much typical. Clear? Just basically we have to understand what they want to say here or what we have to find. So now discuss one more question. So that is related to the case study. Clear? So this one is the case study, question number 1. So from the above data, given data, calculate the maximum permissible bank finance. Clear? Which I have written in the starting of the session, that is MPBF. MPBF, maximum permissible bank finance. Under the first method suggested by the Tandon Committee. Clear? Suggested by the Tandon Committee. So here we have 4 options and I request all of you, please tell fast what is the correct answer. Clear? Please tell fast what is the correct answer. So first of all, we have to find that the other current liabilities. Clear? Other current liabilities. So what is the formula of the other current liabilities? Clear? Here they have given that is liabilities, creditors, other current liabilities, borrowings, and total. Clear? Just remember that here they have given the other current liabilities, but we have to follow our formula. Clear? Not we have to take this one value. We have to follow our formula, that is excluding bank finance. Clear? Basically we have used the term other current liabilities. Under that, basically what we have to exclude out of the total current liabilities, basically just we have to exclude the bank borrowing. Clear? Out of that, basically what we have to exclude, that is we have to exclude only the bank borrowings out of that. Okay. Nothing, anything. Here they have given 40 lakhs, but that is different thing. Clear? That are basically other liabilities. Clear? And generally here under the Tandon Committee, under the first method, other current liabilities, that is total liabilities. This one is the total liability, that is total 410 lakh. Out of that, we have to subtract the only bank borrowings. 410 minus 250. That is 160 lakh. Okay. And total asset here, that is 510. Total asset is 510. So how much bank will finance? That is 75% of the gap between the 0.75, 510 minus 160. So that is 0.75 of what? 360. I think I am correct here. 510 minus 160. That is 350. And 0.75 of that. So it comes out to be 262.50 lakhs. 262.50 lakhs. So this one is our answer. Okay. So hope this is clear to all of you. Just what we have to do, just understand the basic thing, and everything is provided to you in the question. We have to take care just while solving the question. Case studies will never be typical. Okay, case studies are scoring. 1 mark question is very difficult to score, but if they are asking 5 mark case study, out of that we can easily score 2 to 3 marks. Very easily we can score 2 to 3 marks in a case study if there is a 5 mark case study. Okay, so can we now move towards the second method? So now we will move towards the second method of lending. So under the second method of lending, basically what they say here, under the second method of lending, under this, the enterprise was required to bring in at least 25% of the total current assets. Clear? Under that, basically what is the margin under that? What is the margin under that? That is 25% of the total current assets. Clear? Total current assets. So working capital gap. That is, sorry, maximum bank permissible bank finance under that is to be working capital gap minus margin. Minus margin, we can say that. Okay. So this one is the way. So working capital gap, how we can calculate? Current assets minus other current liabilities. And other current liabilities, we know that it is to be current liabilities minus bank borrowings. So let's take one question here. Like we have current asset 500 crore. Current liabilities is to be 200 crore and bank borrowing is to be 50 crore. Bank borrowing is to be 50 crore. So first of all, we have to calculate other current liabilities. That is 200 minus 50. That is 150 crore. That is 150 crore. And what is the working capital gap? Working capital, that is current assets minus other current liabilities. Current asset is 500 minus other current liability, that is 150 crore. So 350 crore. So how much bank will finance? Bank will finance, that is maximum permissible bank finance, that is working capital gap minus 25% of what? Current assets. So 350 minus 25% of 500. So 350 minus 125. It comes out to be 225. It comes out to be 225 crore. Clear? Under that, everything is same. Clear? Under that, basically everything is same. Just what we have to do, we have to subtract the margin. Clear? Basically, we have to subtract the margin as per the guidelines. Clear? As per the guidelines specified under that. So can we now move towards the case study to discuss the second point, second question? Hope all of you are ready. Now move towards the case study and try to solve this question. Clear? And try to solve this question. Basically, what this question says that. Here it says that from the above data or given data, calculate the maximum permissible bank finance under the second method suggested by the Tandon Committee. Clear? Under the second method suggested by the Tandon Committee. So select the most appropriate option from the following. So first of all, we know that working capital gap. First of all, we have to calculate the working capital gap, that is current asset here 500, 10 lakh. Other current liabilities, $160, or directly this one, or directly how we can calculate maximum bank permissible finance? Directly we have to take 0.75 of the current asset minus other current liability, that is 160. So 0.75 of 510 minus 160. So what is the correct answer here? What is the correct answer here? That is 222.50 lakhs. Okay, otherwise just we have to calculate 510 minus 160 and calculate, subtract margin from that, clear, and subtract margin from that, clear. In that way also we can solve this question, clear. In that way also we can solve this question, clear. So it depends upon you how you can solve that question. So please tell fast it is clear to all of you. Basically that the correct answer is option number C, that is 222.50 lakhs. Please ask if you have any doubt, any query regarding this question. Please ask fast if you have any doubt, any query regarding this question. So now move towards the next question, next method, that is third method. So this method is a little bit twisting one. Let's go through that one. And in the next session, basically we will discuss more from that. So third method of lending, clear, third method of lending. So under this, clear, under this, the enterprise was required, clear, under this, the enterprise was required to bring in 100% of those current assets, clear. Under this, the enterprise was required to bring in 100% of those current assets which are considered core assets, clear, basically which are considered core assets. They have to bring 100% of that, and at least 20%, 5% of the remaining current assets, clear, and at least 25% of the remaining current assets, clear. Basically they have to bring in 100% of those current assets which are considered core assets, and at least 25% of the remaining current assets. That is margin 25%. So basically we can say that that is 0.75 we can lend, clear. 0.75 basically we can lend, that is of the remaining assets, clear. That is of the remaining asset. That is, we can say that basically if we are subtracting the core assets, clear, from that, on the rest we can lend, clear, on the rest we can lend, that is 0.75% or 75% we can lend on that. Okay, so let's again discuss once again. The enterprise was required to bring in 100% of those current assets. That is 100% they have to bring out of the core assets, clear, of the core assets, and at least 25% of the remaining current assets, clear, of the remaining current assets, clear. So what is the meaning of that? If they have given total current assets, and out of that basically we have to subtract the core assets, clear, we have to subtract the core assets, and of that 0.75, that is 75% we can lend, clear, 75% we can lend, and we have to subtract the current liabilities as per the theory, clear, as per the theory we have to subtract that. So now move towards the question so that we can understand that point also. So here, calculate the maximum permissible bank finance under the third method suggested by the Tandon Committee. So here they have specifically given, that is the total current core assets, clear, total core current assets are to be 200 lakhs, clear, are to be 200 lakhs. So total current asset, that is 510. So how much bank will finance here? Maximum permissible bank fund, that is 25% is the margin. So 75% we can finance. 75% of 510 minus we have to subtract total current core asset, that is 200, minus current liability, that is 160. That is other current liability we can say that. So 0.75, 310 minus 160. Okay, under the third method, basically we have to finance in this way. So 310 into 0.75, that is basically 232.50 minus 160. That is 72.50 lakhs, clear, 72.50 lakhs. So this is the maximum permissible bank finance as per the third method suggested by the Tandon Committee. How we can get 160? 160, that is other current liability. Other current liability, that is total liabilities minus bank borrowings. 410 minus 250, that is 160. Okay, that is 160. I will directly take here. Clear? I will directly take here. 160 I will directly take here. Okay. 160, that is current liability, or we can say that other current liability. Other current liability, what you have to remember that from the total liability, we have to subtract the bank borrowings. Clear? Same thing basically we have used here 160. Same thing basically we have used here 160. Okay, that is the same factor, only in the margin. Only in the margin, basically we have to create the gap. Clear? Only in the margin, basically we have to create the gap. Rest everything is the same. Clear? Rest everything is same. Clear? We deduct 200. Clear? Because as per the third method, the enterprise was required to bring in 100%. That is, they have to bring in 100% of those current assets which are considered to be core assets. Clear? They have to bring in that much funds. Clear? 100% of that, of the core assets. Clear? That's why basically we will subtract overall. Okay, that's why we will subtract overall that. Okay, and at least 25% of the remaining current assets. Clear? So we will finance basically 75% of the remaining. Clear? We will finance. Clear? Out of the total current assets, if we subtract core assets, clear, this much is the finance we can do. Clear? We have to subtract the current liability. Okay, we have to subtract the other current liability from that. That one is the maximum bank permissible finance. Clear? That one is the maximum bank permissible finance. Or you can say that basically just you have to calculate the margin. That is 0.25 of this one. Okay. On the basis of that, you are able to answer the question. Clear? On the basis of that, you are able to answer the question. Clear? So I request to all of you, please go through this session once again, so that you are able to understand all the points. Clear? So that you are able to understand all the points. And in the next session, basically we will discuss more points. Clear? Basically we will discuss more points. Here one term that is we have used here, that is core assets. Clear? Basically core assets, basically like we can say that core assets basically like machinery, okay. Basically core assets generally include both tangible and intangible assets of the firm. Clear? Both tangible and intangible assets of the firm. In the next session, basically we will discuss some more points on that. Clear? On these terms, so that you are able to understand. Clear? This one is the concept by the Tandon method. So I request to all of you, please remember. Clear? Please remember all these points so that you are able to answer the question in the examination. Clear? Tangible, that is like we can say that like machinery. And under the intangible asset, like we can say that like manpower or their policies. Clear? On intellectual property. Clear? All these things come under the intangible. Clear? So thanks to all of you for joining this session. Hope you are able to understand the first method of lending, second method of lending, third method of lending, along with the numerical and case study type question. Clear? So that you are just go through this session once again, so that you are able to remember all the points. Thanks to all of you for joining this session.